Hi everyone, welcome again to my kitchen in Melrose. I'm going to show you a very simple dish. It's a chicken and stew, or if you want to call it by its real name, it's a blanquette de poulet. So it is all in one dish. I have given the recipe. There was a quick update. Krista updated the recipe for me. I doubled the chicken stock, flour, and butter to give a better, more sauce and a better mouthfeel. So with that said, I hope everyone has a recipe, and I'm going to start. So we can, the chopping board, Krista. So as we talked about last week, every time I pick up a knife, I use my steel to make sure that that knife is sharp. Now in the ingredients, we have chicken, thighs, chicken thighs. For this dish, it's boneless, skinless, and we dice them up into, well, 2-inch pieces. Celery, onion, carrot, and mushrooms. So I actually did, the magic of Zoom, prepare some of these vegetables in advance, but I'm going to show you how I sliced the mushroom. These mushrooms are really big when I got them at the store yesterday. So I'm going to cut them in half. Using that rocking motion that we talked about, I'm slicing the mushroom. Now, if you had very small button mushrooms, you could leave them whole. And then I have celery. So about 1 inch. I'm just going to slice the celery so it's manageable. And carrots. There's some people want to know, should I not peel a carrot? Just washing carrot thoroughly is perfectly fine. When I roast carrots, I just wash them and roast them. But because this is a very clean dish, I did peel them, but you don't have to. I'm just doing it a little zigzag on the carrot. And there we have it. Now, garlic. Who hates peeling garlic? I do. There's a couple of things. I have a little gadget here I bought, and you put the garlic clove in it. You just twist it, and it basically loosens the skin. In this case, it didn't. These are really large garlic. I think everything is big right now. Vegetables are really big, and those mushrooms were huge. They're not normally that size. So I'm going to peel the garlic. I'm going to just bang it, peel it. And you can see the little stud bit there. You're just going to take that off because it's not so nice. And a simple way of chopping garlic is a garlic press. These cloves are so big, I have to cut them in half. You just put it in, put your garlic in. There you go. Your garlic is totally crushed. Now, if you want to use lots of garlic and you don't like peeling and so on, you can purchase these little tubes, like toothpaste, and you can get them in garlic. They have them in chili peppers, sun-dried tomatoes. Sun-dried tomatoes are really good. And tomato paste you're probably most familiar with. So I'm going to take you over to the stove. And I want to see if you can see, yeah, you can see that perfectly well. That's great. So let's get the stove on. And this dish is so simple. I'm going to put my butter in. Now, when you're using butter, use a good quality butter. Kerrygold. Even if I may say so myself. Kerrygold is an excellent butter. Kerry is in the south of Ireland, and it was known as the Golden Vale. Very rich in very rich pastures, and that's where that butter comes from. So we're going to make a roux. So I'm putting in the butter to melt. And it is a rich dish because it has cream in it, but it is yummy. And the one thing about this dish is everything's here. You don't need to add anything with it. If you want crusty bread, that's fine. You don't need to have a side of rice because we're going to put potatoes in here too.
Chef, should the butter be salted or unsalted?
Salted. I always use salted butter. Unsalted butter has absolutely lacking in flavor. And I know some recipes will tell you use unsalted butter for holidays. I've never done it. I've always used salted butter. Now, let's get this party started. So use a good pan too. This is, these are Cuisinart, and they're just cast iron skillets, and they are great. Cast iron really holds in the heat. Now I've got my chicken here, and I'm going to put the flour on the chicken just to coat the chicken somewhat. So I can get, we don't want to brown the chicken because this is a blanquette. This is a white stew. It is not a dark stew.
Chef, can you clarify? We can't see the chicken and the flour. Can you clarify what you did?
I just put the flour on the chicken. I'm going to show you right now. I put the flour on the chicken to coat the chicken. And this flour is also for the roux. This will make the roux. The flour and butter together is a thickener. And Akeisha made a roux on her dish as well. So this is a roux. And I'm going to just lightly put the chicken, and I did say this is thigh meat, which is the most flavorsome meat to use from chicken. Now you see the way the butter soaked up the flour. This is one of my favorite dishes.
What level of heat is it on?
I have it up high right now until I feel that it's going to be hot enough. I will lower it down shortly, but I want to feel that I can feel the heat. It's getting there on the chicken. And it's also cooking my flour. Blanquette de poulet. And it's got some beautiful vegetables in it. I've got carrots, celery, onion, garlic. We're going to have green beans in it later. And I've got bay leaves. When you use bay leaves, see if you can get, these are fresh. I got them at the store yesterday. Bay leaves add a beautiful floral component to the dish. So use fresh. Fresh is always better. Fresh herbs are always better than dried herbs. I mean, if you use dried basil, it tastes nothing like fresh basil. In goes my vegetables. Now they will cook, and that will cook then. And right away, I'm putting in my use a good quality chicken stock from the store, or if you are having a roast chicken, make your own. Keep it in your freezer. Now I'm going to bring that, it's still on high heat because I want this to boil. I want it to boil, and I want it to, then I will reduce the heat. Look how easy this is, right? All the flavors in there. Your carrot, celery, and onion is the basis of what we call a mirepoix. So there's so much flavor with them. And of course, mushrooms, delicious. And this is a blanquette, so we're using white mushrooms. We would not use portobellos or dark mushrooms.
Chef, do you use the same ratio of herbs when you're using fresh versus dried? So if a recipe calls for herbs, can you substitute the same proportion of fresh as you would have used dry?
Depends on the herb. Like thyme and rosemary, I would basically use the same, but fresh basil, I would use more and less dried. And chives are the same, but fresh chives are so much nicer. Um, you don't get that really green finish with dried chives. But in the wintertime, yeah, they're fine to use. But the flavor is very different. But depending on the herb, parsley, it's about the same. But thyme tends to be stronger when it's dried. The flavor is more intense. So here's the fresh bay leaves, and they're over in the lettuce segment in the grocery store. They're usually there next to chives and other fresh herbs. So let's have a look back at our pot. Things are beginning to happen over here.
Do you have a preferred brand of stock? Does it matter?
I like this stock. It's called Signature Select. I went to Shaw's grocery store, and I find this is a really good. Signature is their own in-house brand. It's 32% less sodium than the regular. It's got a cleaner label. It's great flavor. But Signature Select at Shaw's is what I use. There's a Shaw's here in Melrose, so that's where I usually do most of my grocery shopping. And if we look back here, we can see, look at this pot now. You see it's beginning to boil?
Chef, is there a way to make this a vegetarian dish?
Yes, there is. You would certainly use a vegetable stock. You could add some big white butter beans to it, which would be delicious. You could add butter beans, and you could add, I wouldn't suggest tofu, it doesn't really fit, but I would make it more of a bean casserole. Butter beans are really meaty, they're delicious, and by substituting that for the chicken and the vegetable stock would be very nice. And then if you wanted an alternative, instead of cream, you could use some of the plant-based milks. So right now that is perfect. If you can look at the pot, it's bubbling. I'm lowering it down to the lowest heat. I'm going to put the lid on it, and I'm going to leave it alone. And I'm going to check on it in about, we'll check it at like 10 minutes or so. Now, due to the magic of Zoom, I already made one this morning for you. And voila. So this, look at how thick that is. I added the cream. I put in the, I did not season it yet. We're going to season it now. Can you see that, Krista? Yep. So I have my magic spoon taster. I'm tasting like sauce now. It is not seasoned.
Talk about tasting, chef. Why should you taste your food as you're making it?
So if you don't season your food and taste it, you're not going to maximize the flavor. And salt is a flavor enhancer. So by using salt, we don't use too much. We only use the right amount. It is going to lift that flavor and make that dish more delicious and tasty and bring all the other flavors together. So it's really important you have the correct amount of seasoning in that. Now, because this is a white dish, I'm not adding black pepper. I'm going to add white pepper. This is where you add white pepper. Very different feel to it, but white pepper, I usually use white pepper when I'm making mashed potatoes because I don't want to have a little thing of white pepper here, but I don't want to have those black dots in it, you know?
A question of clarification. When do you add the cream? So the magic of television, you went from the dish that you had just covered and you said it was going to cook for 10 minutes. and then you had the dish
So
and the cream in it.
about 5 to 10 minutes before the dish is finished, I add the cream. And the last thing I do is season it. And I added the cream 5 minutes, say 5 minutes before. That's when I add the green beans as well. Because the green beans, you don't want them to overcook. Of all the vegetables, they're the vegetable that cooks the quickest. So the root vegetables are the carrots and onions and so on. They can take a long time to cook, and you get all the flavor out of them. But the green beans is 5 minutes, and then with the cream, and then before you actually serve the dish, we're going to season it. And we're going to season it using salt and pepper, and we're using white pepper.
An additional question, could this be finished in the oven?
It could be finished in the oven, but I tend to think that when you put something in the oven, especially at home, you might forget about it. So I like to, and then you're lifting it down and pulling it back up. I like to look at the dish as it's cooking and stir it. Because it's a cream dish, you want to make sure you stir that at least every 10 minutes. You don't want it to scald. It'll taste burnt and you'll ruin the flavor. But you can do it in the oven. My preference is not. So I've got salt and pepper, white pepper. I'm going back over to the pot and I'm putting in a pinch of each. This is a large dish. And I want to make sure that all these flavors come together. Now, you can see what we call the viscosity, the thickness of that. It's nice and thick, but I'm going to add a little bit more cream just to thin it out a little bit. And the potatoes I got, I want to show you. I went to Shaw's yesterday, and they're called Pee-wee Idaho potatoes. They are absolutely beautiful potatoes, and look at the size of these potatoes. They're perfect for this dish. If you were using like a Red Bliss or something like that, you would want to probably quarter them. But these potatoes, I didn't need to do that. I'm going back to the pot. I put my cream in. I put my salt. I want to make sure this is really nicely mixed. And everything is here. Potatoes, green beans, carrots. And we know that that carrot is cooked because I can literally just put the spatula through it. It's nice and soft. So I'm going to taste again. Now you can, I didn't do it for this recipe, but you can put white wine in at the beginning just after the roux went in, or put it in even with the liquid.
What would that do?
It would add more body to the sauce. The white wine, like a good Sauvignon Blanc, would add a little more body to it. Even though the sauce has got nice chicken stock, it's got cream and vegetables, it has plenty of body, but it would just make it a little bit more decadent. That seasoning, I just tasted it, is perfect. That is nicely seasoned. You don't want to over season your food. It's going to taste bitter and it's going to taste salty. You don't want that. This salt and white pepper just brought everything together, and it's quite delicious. So when I'm serving this dish, because it's a blanquette, I don't know if you can see that, I want to serve this in a colorful dish. If you can see from here. So I'm serving this in a dish I got in Turkey. So it's nice and colorful. Yep.
There you go.
Beautiful. And I'm going to lift the pot over and be careful, I'll gently ladle it in. Now I can smell this and I can tell you that this smells delicious. Some people pull the bay leaves out, I leave it in. They're not good to eat because they're kind of crunchy. And now we're at the stage where I can actually just I can lift the pot up. Doesn't that look good? Now, I went to my garden earlier and I picked up some chives, which I'm going to show you how to cut chives. I picked them up from the garden. I grow them every year. And if you can put the camera is on my chopping board right now.
It's mostly, it's a little hard to see. Can you angle it a little bit? There you go.
You know?
Better.
Yep. So chives are a great herb because they'll come back every year. So I had an old soapstone sink that was in the basement, and one side I grow mint and the other I grow chives, and they will come back every year, and they're delightful. So I like when you cut chives nice and small, and this is also going to make the dish look nice, but it will add more flavor to it. Chives are very fresh, delicious herbs. Remember I talked to you about how to hold a knife with my fingers? Lots of chives. Now, that looks like a good amount. Let's go back over. Let's just put those chives on that dish. Now, how about that? And then it's one pot cooking, so you put 2 spoons in, and you and your family, your guests, your friends can all enjoy this fabulous dish, which its origins are from France. If you didn't put the potatoes in, you could put that in the oven with some puff pastry and you got chicken pot pie. But they all came from a blanquette de poulet. Simply delicious.
Fantastic. We've got wows and yums and what time is dinner and
if you're in Melrose, stop by.
Right. Does anybody have any questions for the chef? Just a reminder that the recipe that was attached to your email, you want to double the butter, the flour, and the broth. And Marge asks, how much wine would you use if you wanted to use it?
I would put, for this recipe, I would put a glass of white wine in. And then it's also nice to, what I would drink with it, if I was going to have wine with it, I would probably have a Chardonnay, because the Chardonnay is more buttery and richer. And the Chardonnay would go well with the texture of this dish, with the creaminess of it. Yeah, is another question there, Kristen?
Is it important to have all the cuts the same on the veggies and chicken?
I cut the chicken a little bit bigger. It's going to give you, everything will cook uniformly, and it'll look nicer when you have the vegetables consistently the same size. And this dish, when you're sitting down with family, friends to eat, people will really enjoy it. It's very tasty. It's very filling. And it's a perfect dish with a glass of Chardonnay.
And there's a question, will the recording be available? Yes, every class, the recordings and the recipes are available. I'm putting hopefully the recipe was attached to your email, your calendar invitation. So you should look at that. But if you cannot, if for whatever reason your computer doesn't like that version, I just put the link in the chat so that you can go to that site to see all the previous class recordings and the recipes and the roster of upcoming classes. So there are more coming up. We're doing them every Thursday and Friday through July 3rd. All right. So there was a comment that you received a sweet potato soup recipe. It may have, that is one of next week's classes. So you're probably, they all use the same Zoom link, but you probably got an email also about next week's class. All right, any other questions for the chef?
So
Martin, enjoy your dinner. Thank you so much.
you are most welcome. Everyone have a great weekend.
Martin.
Thank you,
and
Chef.
David Eisenberg. I also want to compliment you on the wonderful placement of both cameras so we could see you talking and also watch your hands and hands. It was marvelous. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, David. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Martin, what time's dinner?